Okay, everyone, we are at our 11:40 session. So if I could ask everyone to take a seat and plug back in. There's more beaver work to be done. So I am very excited to introduce Maizie Smith, Program Manager with Montana Conservation Corps. She will be speaking on forming people and place-based connections through implementing low-tech process-based restoration projects within the Northern Great Plains. Please welcome to the stage.
I apologize already for that title. It's kind of unhinged. Thanks for being here, you guys. This is also my first BeaverCon, and I'm super new to this work. But despite being a novice, the passion runs deep. I've had ranchers ask me, like, how long have you been doing this? And I'm like, 4 months. And they're like, what? So despite being new, I'm really passionate, and I'm really, really grateful to be here with you all and learning so much. So I'm going to weave together a lot of different things today. So please ask questions. There should be plenty of time at the end, I hope. But I'm going to start by talking about the Northern Great Plains, how Montana Conservation Corps started working in this ecosystem, and what the heck are we even doing there. I'm going to talk about a case study about one of our kind of multi-year projects, and then how our program creates connections for people, not only in the places that they work, but with the communities that they serve, and also to beavers. So I have come to really love the Northern Great Plains. It seems to be like a really underutilized and underappreciated area of our country. It spans from southern Alberta to Montana to North Dakota to South Dakota to Wyoming and Nebraska. It is a beautiful place. It is wildly diverse. And something that I want to highlight is that these streams and riparian areas only make up less than 2% of the landscape, but are necessary for over 80% of the species that live in this ecosystem. And so obviously, beavers in the prairie are super important. And I think something that people don't understand is that prairie beavers are alive and well in the Northern Great Plains, and hopefully even more alive and well with a little help from us. So they've obviously been heavily impacted by over 200 years of European settling. Sometimes they've been affected by overgrazing, irrigation, trapping, and habitat destruction. And with the loss of beavers in the Northern Great Plains, we've seen incised and straightening streams, and a huge loss of these riparian ecosystems that are so vital. The Northern Great Plains is adapted with drought, and it's something it needs, but in the last 10 years, we've seen more frequent, more intense drought on the landscape. So through these past years of drought, a lot of concerns have come up for the landowners and the stakeholders who live and work in the Northern Great Plains of Montana. They're really, really worried about drought and climate change. And they're really, really worried about the fact that they don't have the knowledge or the tools or the labor capacity to implement restoration to address drought on their land. So we partnered together with a lot of nonprofits across Montana. We partnered with conservation districts and then private landowners themselves to come together and make some goals around how we can address drought in the Northern Great Plains. So we came up with some goals to address and promote drought resiliency. We want to restore mesic and prairie stream systems, which also helps enhance beaver and wildlife habitat, and then kind of overlaid on top of that, create opportunities for young adults to connect with rural communities. And we have a lot of really important partners that we work with that MCC is funded by: the Nature Conservancy, the World Wildlife Fund, the Wildlife Federation, and then we also have some Montana-specific BLM partners and an organization called Win It Aces that is like a community-built nonprofit that is so, so amazing, and you should look them up. And they've really done a great job of building a bridge between rural ranchers and kind of these big national and worldwide nonprofits. So I'm going to zoom out really quick and talk about Montana Conservation Corps in general. So our mission is to inspire young people through hands-on conservation service to be leaders, stewards of the land, and engaged citizens who improve their communities. We meet this mission through a variety of programs. So we kind of have one big branch of MCC that is individual placement program, where individual interns work all over the Rocky Mountain West with specific offices, maybe with the Forest Service or the BLM or a conservation district, working on a variety of conservation projects. And then we have our field program arm that encompasses our youth programming, our young adult programming, and our tribal programming. Those are each distinct branches. So obviously I work under the branch of the young adult programs. So we have people come on and work AmeriCorps terms. Most of them work a 4-month term over the summer season. And some of them, if they're lucky enough, are part of our specialized restoration crews. So these are 4-person crews that started in 2022. We've expanded to 3 crews, and next year we're gonna have 4. Woohoo! And that number is wrong. I just got an email today that said we have surpassed 1,000 structures that our specialized crews have built. And thank you. And for now, these crews are all based out of Helena, Montana, which is still in western Montana, but kind of closer to the central part of the state. These crews receive specialized training. I make it my priority to give them special training also about interacting and connecting with rural communities. Because we work with private landowners on private land, we're a much more public-facing crew than like per se a wilderness trails crew, who probably doesn't see another soul their whole hitch. So they get a lot of extra training and support around interacting with rural communities. They also have a bigger media presence. One quick Google of MCC BDA, and you can find a variety of articles and like news outlet presentations. We also host volunteer days, workshops, that leads to a lot of community and landowner involvement. So it's a lot of people coming together on these projects, not just these crews acting alone, that really helps to enrich this experience for them all and the communities. So this is a great map of kind of our area that we work in. The most important thing I wanted to highlight with this map is I think that that western blue and white side is what people think about when they think about Montana. That's where Yellowstone is filmed. That's where Bozeman and Missoula and Helena are. And what's really special about the work that we do is that we work in the prairie. The prairie is very rural, but very full of passionate, like really engaged, really knowledgeable humans who have lived there for oftentimes many, many generations. And so I feel really lucky to not only work in this region, but also expose young people to this region year after year, oftentimes them returning to then share the knowledge that they've learned on with the next group of folks who come out and work in Montana. So, what is low-tech process-based restoration? And I think I want to address this question specifically talking about the prairie and how low-tech process-based restoration works in this ecosystem that does not have a lot of information. So, grad students, come, please study the prairie. I'm always looking for more information. We deal with a lot of erosion. We deal with a lot of intermittent streams that get a ton of water for 1 month of the year and then maybe don't see water again until the next year. So think about a lot of energy coming in all at once after everything had dried out, and then it all kind of disappearing in the matter of weeks. So all of our structures are really meant to kind of slow down erosion, raise the water table, create more riparian areas, along the stream banks and create more wet meadows. So we do this through building BDAs, which we all know and love. They slow down water, they raise the water table, they widen streams. We also do low bank builders, which you can see just above the BDAs, and those really help with these high energy banks that erode really quickly, and they just help catch sediment that falls and kind of lay back those banks and slow down that erosion and create a little bit more of a natural bend. We also do a lot of PALs that we really use PALs to induce meandering along these streams that have really channelized and straightened out. And then we do also a good amount of head cut mitigation structures, which address these areas of high erosion, kind of these tendrils that create themselves off of streams, but create these like tiny waterfalls that will just continue to erode and deepen into the earth. And we kind of stair-step them and weave willows and make post lines to help, again, kind of set that back, slow that down, and mimic a more like natural erosion cycle. So this is one of our beautiful prairie streams that we work on. This is called Buffalo Creek. We've been working on Buffalo Creek for 3 years now. You can see a series of BDAs and a PAL that we've built along Buffalo Creek. This is a year after those structures were built, and I think it's amazing how much wider and higher the water already is. Obviously, this was taken in the springtime, so it's a little not truthful to how this stream looks all year long, but I still think it's a beautiful example of like how much these streams can change in such a short amount of time. So, Buffalo Creek is a perennial stream. The landowner really wanted to see more wildlife. She really talked a lot about how many birds there used to be and how she really misses like all of these animals that she used to see on her land growing up. She wanted to slow the flow, reconnect the floodplain, increase vegetation. That's a big goal on the prairie, is more cottonwoods specifically because of how windy and kind of just, there's not a lot of trees, if any. So far we have 77 structures on Buffalo Creek, and that's mostly because we don't just build during our hitches. We also go back and maintenance old structures and make sure that they're working and doing what we want them to do. And the beautiful thing about Buffalo Creek and why I chose it is because beavers moved in after 2 months of our initial build on this creek. And so it's amazing to go back and visit and see the beavers. And the ranch manager was pretty anti-beaver when we first met him. And from what I've heard, he is coming around. So I'm calling that a win. This is a picture that is actually a video that if anyone wants to see, I'll show you anytime. But you can kind of see our BDA structure at the very top, and there's a beaver right in the middle there. And it's a really fun video. They kind of float down the stream and then clamp onto the bank and just hang out there for a minute. And it's very fun. So last but definitely not least is I want to talk about the relationships that our crews get to make when they're doing these projects. So they're not only making relationships with the landowners, they're making relationships with other MCC members, other members of the communities that they're working in, and other specialists in the field who attend our workshops. And it really helps to make them feel like what they're doing matters. It is hard to go out and leave all your friends and your community behind and work in central Montana for 9 days, 10-hour days, manual labor in the rain, in the 100-degree summer, all of those things. It's hard, but they come back year after year because of these relationships and their relationships to the prairie and their relationships to beavers. They often call themselves beaver crews, and it's just a really special experience to feel the immediate effects of what you're doing and how it helps the landscape so directly. Clearing a tree off a trail is very helpful to humans, and that can feel good. Chainsaws are fun, but building a structure that is storing water for a beaver and like the feeling that comes with that is really special and not something that other members in MCC always get to access. It's really cool for them to see ranching and restoration go hand in hand. And it's really cool to watch them teach things to ranchers while also having ranchers teach things to them, and that just like beautiful exchange of knowledge. There's a lot of shared meals and shared community events. There's jam nights in Winnett, Montana every Saturday if anybody's free. And they're really fun, and it just really helps round out their experience. So I'm going to end today, like so many, with where I hope we go. I really want to see this work expand. I want to see it expand along entire watersheds, which is usually the bigger term goal for a lot of our projects, but hard to reach because of different management and access issues to streams. I'm also hoping to see us expand to different states and different offices throughout Montana to see more of this work happen. I would love to see more monitoring. That is like a huge gap in our program that we have right now, and it kind of falls out of our purview of what MCC does, but someone today talked a lot about operationalizing things, and I would love to see more of that, just to empower crews to do this work without questioning themselves. I want to see us do different kinds of projects, more tree wrapping, more beaver deceivers, a lot of things that I learned about here, besides just our LTPBR structures, which are very fun to build, but after a little while, it can get a little old. And last but not least, I want to have more collaboration across groups. There's a lot of specialized tools and trial and error that has gone into these restoration crews, a lot of failures, and I would love to help and support other organizations who are interested in doing this work and sharing knowledge and also sharing resources so that we can get this work done and more of it happens. Cool. It's supposed to be my email, but that's okay. Yeah, thank you all so much. If there's any questions.
Just a reminder that we can all message Maizie through the app. And thank you so much. We have 8 minutes for questions. What is the size of your Buffalo Creek project area?
That's a great question. I could deep dive into onyx, but there's 4 reaches, and I want to say that each reach is probably, yeah, I'm not sure. There's 4 reaches, and they're each about a meadow size. So I can definitely look on onyx and measure that, but yeah.
And how are you, MCC, and your partners defining success?
We are defining success as, I think right now, because most of our partners, most of our private landowner partners are really interested in seeing more water move laterally and seeing kind of more riparian plants and vegetation pop up on their land. So when we're seeing that floodplain reconnect, we are kind of considering that success. Every landowner and every partner is going to have a different measure of what that success is based on their goals. Some landowners are really interested in wildlife and habitat, and some are really interested in late season forage and water storage. So if they're seeing more water being stored on their land and they're seeing more late season forage, they're considering that a success. And other folks have other measurements for that. I think for me, if my crews are coming back healthy and the work has gotten done, I'm calling that success.
Okay, so you mentioned that you provide specialized training to your crews on how to interact with rural communities. Can you give us some idea of what you mean by that?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's pretty much a discussion about humility and being humble and understanding that you are interacting with someone who may have a lot of preconceived notions of you and you of them, and how to break that down and regulate through that conversation. It's a lot about asking questions and just being curious. I think people want to talk and want to share about their land and their history on that land especially. And so it's kind of just inspiring them to be curious about the people's land that they're so kind to let us, drive our trucks around on and, build these funny structures that they may not quite understand, but they're putting a lot of faith in us. So yeah, just approaching those people with humility and curiosity.
Does anyone in the room have any questions? I see a hand up. Okay.
Hi, I used to work in CCMI, so that's Conservation Corps of Minnesota and Iowa.
Nice.
And we didn't have any beaver programs throughout either state. And so I was just wondering, do you partner with other state CCs to help incorporate these types of beaver management programs?
Yeah, we don't at the moment. There's definitely a network of conservation corps that exists. I think right now it's more about having people reach out to us, and then I'm happy to provide, kind of more the logistical things, like you need a post pounder, you need certain kinds of posts, and every ecosystem is going to be different, so you kind of have to change for those. But I'm always interested. But more it's kind of do they have the funding, and do they have their state partners to even send crews out to do that type of work, right? That's kind of step one. And then maybe down the line, as they're getting ready to do that, they can reach out to someone like me or someone else who's been doing this work for a good amount of time to help them kind of ease into setting up their crews for success.
Hi, great talk. I love what you're doing. I took a class at that second-tier university, Ski SU in Fort Fun. It was called Fish Habitat Management. And the major professor was a co-op professor. But basically he said, all these projects need to be monitored. Mm-hmm. And so there's there's a lot of ways you can do it, but you can just take simple pictures every year or every other year and see how they weather. Do you design your structures to withstand a 50-year, 100-year flood or anything like that? And the other thing is, you can get graduate students or other organizations to do the monitoring for you that's more in depth, like, does the fish population increase, or do they just get attracted to the good habitat you create and it's existing fish just moving from up and down the stream? There's a lot of questions you could ask, but thanks for your coming here and talking.
Thank you. Yeah, we do take pictures of all our structures, and they're mapped on Onyx, which is just the most amazing thing that has ever existed for me. And we actually are partnering with a graduate student from Montana State University right now. My whole thing is I just want more grad students.
So a couple more questions magically appeared. Is sourcing materials on the prairie logistically challenging?
Absolutely. We buy most of our posts from post yards, untreated. Thankfully, we can get them semi-locally, which is really nice. And usually how it works is we spend the first day or two of our projects at a willow site that's usually not the same place as the stream site itself. And we harvest 30% of the willows in a patch, and we fill our trailers to the brim, and then we drive that to our stream site. So we figured out a way to make it work. We primarily use willows because, as you may have guessed, there's not a ton of conifer material on the prairie. So that's kind of how we've made that work thus far. Yeah.
How do you connect with landowners and make the leap to work with them?
Yeah, there's a variety of ways. One of the ways is that they reach out to us. Someone that I work really closely with, her name is Autumn. She specifically does all of the LTPBR organization and management for all of our projects, and she does all of our specialized trainings, and she's the one who really does a lot of the heavy lifting for this work. Also, there are ranchers who are already part of existing conservation programs through the World Wildlife Fund or through the Nature Conservancy. And so one of the ways that they can meet their requirements for these programs is to have us come implement LTPBR on their landscape. Or they've connected us through conservation districts, neighbors. We've reached out to them because logistically it makes sense, like, oh, we've already built on the upper reaches of Buffalo Creek, let's follow it down and talk to the people who live on the lower reaches. So it's really a multifaceted kind of network of how we all find each other.
Well, thank you so much. We are out of time for your session, so you're going to need to answer questions on the app. Just a quick note to everyone, there's a luncheon for sponsors and presenters in the tent outside. For everyone else, lunch is on your own, and we are in the Union, and it has food options downstairs. And we are a block away to the west, you will find dozens of restaurants. But thank you so much, Maizie.